Guys, welcome back. So today we're out the range continuing the 80s firearms theme. Today I have one of my favorite firearms as a kid growing up. It's the UZI. It's made by IMI, or was made by IMI, which later split off and became IWI, the people that make the Tavor. The UZI is really something of an iconic firearm. It's one of just a handful of firearms you can show to somebody and they'll probably guess what it is. The AK-47, the M16, and the UZI. That's kind of how prolific the gun is. The gun was designed in the 1950s by a gentleman by the name of UZI Does, who was a captain in the IDF. He won a competition to develop a submachine gun for the IDF, and again, it started its development in the 50s. By the 1960s, it was pretty much in widespread use in the IDF. The original versions had a wooden stock, but by early 1960s, you started to see it with the kind of the iconic as well folding metal stock. Now, I also remember as a kid growing up in the 80s when President Reagan was shot. He was hit and pushed into a car, into his limousine, but as all that was going down, there's imagery or pictures from that scene where you see the Secret Service agents pulling their full-size UZI submachine guns out from underneath their sports coats. They were apparently wearing them in shoulder harnesses with rather generous cuts to their sport jackets to hide the somewhat large submachine gun. So the gun, again, has become very iconic, and I had one when I was in high school or just out of high school. It was one of the first guns I bought with my own money with my first job, and I've had them throughout my life. Unfortunately, the previous two that I've owned, which were Model Bs, there was a Model A as well, which would have been an early import. I had to sell my Model Bs for money. I just needed the money. But now I have one that's going to stay in my collection, hopefully for the rest of my life, and here it is. Now, as you guys know, when I buy guns, I like to buy them in as original condition as possible. This is the original case that the gun shipped in. On the inside, this gun still has its original factory sling, all the paperwork that came with it, including the owner's manual. That didn't come with it. And the accessory catalog. This stuff just reminds me of my youth so much. Get out of there, fly. And then, of course, just some Action Arms, who was the original importer, just some of their promotional materials from that era. So all this stuff would have shipped with the gun originally. This is the gun in its case. It would have came with an original 25-round magazine, the gun itself, the sling as I pointed out, a sight tool, and then a dummy barrel. This dummy barrel replaces the factory 16-inch barrel, which is required under U.S. law to make it a legal rifle. But you can unscrew this nut, and I'll show you this later, put this in place, and it's called a display barrel. So the gun looks like it should. Now, I do have paperwork pending on this one. When I found out about 41P, I decided to go ahead and SBR a lot of my guns in my collection, and this is one of the guns that will be SBR'd, so I can put the proper 8-inch barrel on it so it looks and fires, just like the original, sans the select fire capability. It will be a semi-auto. So that's what we're going to take a look at this afternoon, is the IMI Israeli-made UZI. So let's stop talking, get some magazines loaded up, and do a little bit of shooting and check this very interesting gun out from the 1980s. All right, let's get ready to shoot this little guy. Now, first of all, let's just quickly go over the features of the gun. First of all, this is the folding stock that collapses and locks into place just under the back of the receiver here. The originals, as I mentioned in the introduction, had a wooden stock, and they really look kind of cool with those stocks. After I get this thing SBR'd, I'm going to try to find an original wooden stock so I can go back and forth. But I really do also like this collapsible metal stock. How the stock works is you just kind of strike it downward with the palm of your hand, like that. That'll break it loose, and then you just pull backwards, and it'll lock in the extended position. The sights are right here. They're adjustable for windage on the rear and elevation on the front. You have two apertures, a long range and a close range aperture. And then up here in the front, you have just a metal post, again, which is adjustable for elevation. The tool that comes in the box that I showed you makes adjustments to both elevation and windage. They have the ears that protect the sights. Up here we have the 16-inch barrel. Because of silly U.S. laws, we have to have the 16-inch barrel. The original machine gun would have had an 8-inch barrel, which is stuck out right about to here. And once you SBR this, you can put the 8-inch barrels in. They're commonly available, and this is how easy the barrel is to put in the gun or to take out. You just push down this little locking mechanism, push that down, rotate this muzzle nut, and then the barrel just comes off. Put the barrel back together, you just slide it in, crank this down. You'll hear it kind of ratchet to a stop. This little guy right here keeps it locked in place. and it's ready to fire. The charging handle is on the top right here, and it does have sling swivels on, well, a rotating swivel in the front and then just a sling loop here on the rear of the stock for use with the factory sling. You'll notice the cutout here in the charging handle so you can get your sight picture through the charging handle. Now to charge the firearm, this is very similar to the open bolt submachine gun. By open bolt, I mean when it's a submachine gun, you pull the bolt to the rear and it stays to the rear. You pull the trigger and the bolt slams home with a fixed firing pin, strips around and fires it. The ATF decided that open bolt semi-automatics were a bad thing for whatever reason in the early 80s, and therefore no more semi-automatic open bolt guns can be manufactured or sold to the civilian market. So this one works very similarly to the open bolt submachine gun, but instead of holding the entire bolt back, it just holds the striker assembly back. Now with the striker forward, you'll notice that there's a grip safety here on the gun. If the striker's forward, just like the submachine gun, if I don't get a grip on the gun, I don't depress this safety. If I try to charge the weapon, I can't. It locks it. Okay, that's a safety mechanism. Once I grab the grip safety, now I can charge the firearm. Now, if this were a fully automatic firearm, the bolt would have stayed back like this. When I pulled the trigger, it would slam home. Right now, all that's being held back is the striker. Okay, your fire controls are right here. This just has safe and fire. The original would have had a third position, which would have been full auto. All right, and most of the time they're marked in Hebrew. These are obviously marked in English for the US market. All right, so the guns are available with 25 round and 32 round magazines. This is a 32 round magazine. The magazine goes straight into the grip of the gun. Whap it, make sure it locks in. Your magazine release is right here. Push that down with your thumb and the magazine comes out. Okay? I'm gonna go ahead and charge the rifle, pull it to the rear, let it go. Now, when an open bolt fires, it kind of disrupts the sight picture, at least in my experience, because the whole mass of the bolt slams home before it fires, and so you can kind of feel the gun lurch forward when the bolt gets released. The Uzi's not letting its whole bolt go forward, but as you'll see later in the video, the striker's fairly sizable. And so even with this thing, when I feel that striker release, I can feel the gun kind of slightly move forward when it releases. So it has somewhat of the feel of the open bolt gun. Here we go. All right, so the bolt does not lock open, it just runs dry, bolt goes home. Check to make sure it's clear. You can see easily inside the chamber area there. All right, so that magazine's spent. Recoil is really manageable. What I have found is you're inclined, you'll oftentimes have a line across your face when you shoot these things because this metal stock is square almost. You know, it's right angles, the edges are rather abrupt, and so when you're firing it, you're inclined to push your cheek into it, and the thing will rattle your teeth and actually be a little bit uncomfortable, so you don't really want to press your face against the stock. Just bring your face down and just touch it, and you'll find that it's much more comfortable to shoot. To collapse the stock, there's a little button right here. Just push that in, and that breaks the top part of the stock loose. The second part of the lock is right here where my thumb is, okay? And how you break it loose is you just squeeze it. See how it comes loose right here? Just squeeze it, and now it rotates up. It locks into this little shelf right there. So I just rotate this up. Oops, I gotta hit the button again. Rotate this up, and then as I pull this down, it engages that little shelf right there. And I just give it a whap with the palm of my hand, and that seats the stock, and it won't come loose. Not until I extend it again. Really handy little carbine. It's not exactly lightweight. Reliability is through the roof. They work very, very well. And just overall, it's a very fun and pleasant gun to shoot. Let's load up some more ammunition, do a little bit more shooting. All right, guys, so what we're gonna do now is a little bit of an 80s action movie run and gun challenge here. Jason, who's normally behind the camera, is gonna step in front of it and show us how it's done. Jason, it's all yours. I'm going to go ahead and say that that's not really very effective. This is a 32 round magazine. You can see the windows here. This is the locking slot where it locks into the lock in the pistol grip. And this gives you an idea how many rounds are in it. Now the magazines can be a little bit stiff and rough to load. It's a true double stack magazine, so you don't have to push down and back. You just set the rounds on top and push down. And once you get around 30 rounds in here, it's really difficult to get that 32nd round into the magazine. Typically, I'll only load 25 or 30 rounds. Given a box of cartridges is 50 rounds, I'll typically load 20 and 25 and 25 so I can get 2 magazines out of a single box of ammo. But once you get the hang of it, it goes pretty well. Now you will find a lot of surplus UZI magazines on the market. You'll find them anywhere between 20 and 30 bucks a piece. There are non-IMI made magazines which are of dubious quality and reliability. If you want to look for an IMI magazine, they'll be marked. They'll have numbers on the back of them. And a lot of times you'll find that they're parkerized like this one. This one's black painted. The one in my right hand is parkerized, but both of these are original UZI magazines, or IMI magazines, I should say. They'll be a little bit dry, especially the parkerized ones, and you'll want to take them apart and clean them and leave oil in them. It'll make reliability better, and it'll also make it much easier to load the magazine. Just about got every round I can get in there loaded. All right, so we're shooting the ZQI 123 grain military ball stuff, but I found these things will feed even hollow points. So, all right, let's go over here and shoot this Challenge Steel harmonic target really quick. You can see it down there. It's a 2-plate target system. If you hit the one in the center, it'll ring differently, has a different tone than the one on the outside, so it shows kill hits. So I've inserted the magazine, just make sure it's firmly seated. Pull the bolt to the rear, charge it, make sure it's on fire, and then I'm going to pop him in the center here. See if I can get him in the head. A little low. There we go. That stock can be a little bit uncomfortable. All right, shooting him in the head there. Let's go back to center of mass. All right, that's it. All right, so this thing is just a lot of fun to shoot. One thing that you'll notice that this one has a slot right here in the bolt. When we take it apart, I'll explain to you why this slot is here on the semi-automatic version of the gun and why it's not present on the full auto. Let's take the gun apart and look inside. All right, so I gotta outdo Jason, and to do that, all I have to do is score 1 hit on that steel target firing from the hip on the run. Now, who can forget the famous scene in Terminator, which was a movie when I was a kid, where Arnold Schwarzenegger standing there in the gun shop and goes, "UZI 9mm," as he's trying to get guns to go out and kill Sarah Connor. All right, here we go. It's not a tumor! Ah! You gotta take cover! I can't hit the magazine. Ah! I think I outdid him. My hip shooting is much better, and it's an important skill set to have. All right, field stripping the UZI is very easy to do. First thing you'll want to do is make the weapon safe. To do that, you're going to drop the magazine out, pull the bolt to the rear, make sure that the chamber's empty. You can see that the chamber's empty. Right here, just in front of the rear sight, there's a little button that you can push. When you push this in, the top cover hinges upwards, okay? At the front of the top cover, you'll see how there's a spring attached right there. That's for the charging handle. So it's a non-reciprocating charging handle. And the sheet metal curls around, and that's what gives you that hinging capability when you're putting it back together. You see how it kind of hinges up? It's because of how that sheet metal's turned down. Inside, you're going to find the bolt. Now, internally, this gun is very similar to the fully automatic version. To take the bolt out of the gun, all you have to do is grab the front of the bolt, pull it back slightly, lift up, and the bolt and striker assembly will come out of the gun. I'm going to lay that there for now. Inside the gun, you can see basically it's just one big open trough. You'll also notice that right here, there's a little ledge. This ledge is not present on the machine gun. This ledge corresponds to this slot cut in the bolt. That's to keep you from putting a fully automatic open bolt in the gun. That's mandatory by the ATF. IMI had to make sure that the gun could not just accept drop-in full auto machine gun parts, and that's one of the changes that they made to the gun. This here with this big spring, this is your striker assembly. And right here is the notch where the sear engages, that holds it to the rear. So when it's in the fire position, the firing pin is back like this. When you pull the trigger, it slams home, fires the gun. The whole assembly moves rearward. This stays rearward and as the bolt moves home. When you pull the trigger, it starts all over again. This just pulls out, and there you can see the firing pin for the gun. Here's the bolt, okay, and the primary recoil spring. That's all there is to field stripping the Uzi. You can take the barrel out. You can see how the barrel comes into the receiver here. It's held in place. You can see that rather large feed ramp. Again, it will feed hollow points. I told you how to take the barrel out. We'll just do it here really quick. We'll go ahead and push down on the little detent button. Rotate this muzzle nut, take it off, slide the barrel out, and that's it. We're back out at the 100 yards, and we're going to be shooting all the way down there, and it's about a half-size, man-size target. And we did this with the Tommy gun, right? And the Tommy was spot on. Sucker rang steel every single time. We're going to see if the Uzi can do the same thing. I'm hoping it can. I'm pretty sure it can. Kind of get my oddball stance here. I will say that the front sight post is a lot bigger, much less precise than the Thompson. Fire one round here, see how good we do. I think it went high. There we go, that got it. All right, so what's funny is this doesn't have nearly as much bullet drop, this little 9mm, than the 45 ACP. Matter of fact, in the original Tommy gun video, or that Tommy gun video, you can actually see the bullets going up and hitting the target. I slowed that down so you could see it at the beginning of the video. If you haven't seen that, check it out. But these 9mm are still moving at a pretty good clip, and it looks like pretty much a dead hold is going to give me a solid hit. That hit it. That hit it. Yep, we're hitting. That went over his shoulder. Yeah, that went over his shoulder. All right, so I'd say this thing's pretty much on. From what I can see here, looks like the group is pretty much center of mass, maybe just a little bit to the right, so I may want to drift my rear sight over just a hair to the left. Sight tools in the box, so just a couple of turns should get me dead on at 100 yards. Now, that's one of the things the original Uzi was known for. It was surprisingly accurate, which was noted by the military guys that carried them in the IDF, and also by organizations like the Secret Service and even Special Operations Group in the United States. In the 70s and 80s, early 80s, would have used these guns, and everybody seemed to find them to both be reliable and pretty darn accurate for a 9mm submachine gun. Well, guys, it's time to wrap this thing up. I hope you enjoyed coming out to the range with me to check out my Uzi Model B. If you guys would like to buy one, again, you have a couple of choices. Buy one of the USA-made clones, or you can pick up an original gun off a site like Gunbroker, but be prepared to spend quite a bit of money. One of my favorite guns in my collection. If you guys would like to support the Military Arms channel, you can do that by swinging by Copper Custom and picking up a Mac patch. They're only $3.99. And if you haven't already, please check out full30.com. That's full30.com. We've taken all the web's best firearms content creators, brought them under one roof, and that is full30.com. Now, this car behind me has managed to be on this range for a full year and not get a bullet hole in it. So we decided this afternoon we have to christen the car and put a bullet hole in it. So here we go. First bullet hole in the Mac range car. I could see it move something on the inside. Yeah. It came out right there by the handrest. Yeah, well, anyway. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll talk to you guys soon.